The Dragon Lord's Consort Chapter 6. Home away, but not far away. Flashback. 1 week prior. As Dragon Lord, you must adhere to your responsibilities. You must seek a mate or consort. You must bring him here by a week's end, in which case if he doesn't, the process would already begin with the power of the scepter, coursing through your body, which will begin to corrode and consume you from within. You and your mate must share that power to continue your rule. Should you not, the powers will kill both of you before your century is out. This is a heavy burden that I had not wished upon you, my dear Ember. However, fate has other plans for you. Both have touched its power, so now your destiny is entwined with his. But, Father, how can I get him here? He lives with ponies, and they're his family to him. I cannot. I could never force him away from them. Yes, he grumbled. Family is important, but know that there is a sacrifice with it. There is more to a Dragon Lord than ruling. Rules were created for a reason, and those involved finding a mate to bind with and share your power. The power that has consumed our ancestors is what has killed many of the great elders off. The power of the Bloodstone Scepter is too great for a single dragon alone. Is that why you've decided to set the gauntlet afire? My time was coming soon, my daughter. With your mother in the great sleep, the power is slowly consuming me. If I held on to it any longer, my death would be much sooner. Giving it up is what has saved me from that early grave. With you now as Dragon Lord, you must share its power. Find that dragon whom you have shared it with, bring him here, and claim him as your mate or as a consort, but he must be by your side. I just earned his friendship, Father. I just earned my only friend's trust. How can I tell him that he must be with me forever? Lie to him if you must, my daughter. Make a story up. Tell him why he needs to be here, but you must do it soon. I'll try, Father. Please do, Ember. For both of your sakes. And now, that was the reason why he was coming with her. That was the real reason he would be bringing Spike to the Dragonlands. Yes, she wanted him as a consort or even as a mate. Yes, she needed to be bonded with him so she could rule. And yes, she wanted him for his care and support, but that was all the half-truths. Not really the whole reason. The bond between the scepter and the dragon was too strong for a single dragon to handle, because not only the scepter is responsible for calling all dragons across the lands, it is to call dragons across the world. Dragons whom are as intelligent as ponies, or whom are as dumb as the rocks they sleep on. It is to hold the power of past Dragon Lord millenniums before her time. The scepter was more than just a staff. It was a link into the past, a power in which contains the blood of Draco. Draco, the first dragon lord, the first dragon who created all dragons. His blood lied within the Bloodstone Scepter, and it was his blood that controlled dragons from all around. Not only for dragons, but it is said that the Bloodstone holds the key to powers beyond dragons, to turn dormant volcanoes into violent eruptions with a single tap of the mountain. It could raise waves of fire from a single spark of a dragon's flame. It is all that power, and more. It must be shared with another. Life mates, consorts, or even among others with relationships that involve 3 or more. What her father once called a dragon's living horde. There was some other terms such as packs, cluster, clutch, if there were younger age dragons, and such, but the word horde had carried its meaning. Whether it meant a dragon's collection of jewels, gems, inanimate objects, and such, or a group of dragons living with one another as mates or consorts, but they belonged to or were under the belts of their lord or mistress. Few of those remain in the valley. The dragons that do live like that often leave normal dragon society to take care of their own in distant lands, or so other dragons can't really claim another dragon's horde, both living and inanimate. Yet, Ember had no need for multiple mates, nor giant hordes or a living horde. She just wants someone to care for her, as a friend, and as a consort, or even maybe as a mate. For the worth and trials she had endured, no Drake has ever tried to court her, nor has she developed a single, somewhat coherent string with another dragon. Either too afraid to approach the daughter of the current Dragon Lord, or that she was too high and proper from other dragons, or maybe just that she was just another dragon among dragons. Either way, she'd hoped that the dragon that was flying on her back was her hope for it all. The dragons of 4 flew towards the destination at near high speeds. Spike was enjoying himself, much to Garble's chagrin. Amethyst's new love for the little guy and Ember's humor. Spike had no knowledge of free-base flight, and he was young, but what picked Ember's interest up on him was the lack of his wings. Despite his young nature, he should already have sprouted his wings already. She could already assume that he was younger than her, but not by much. give or take maybe a decade or less span in between them. Probably the lack of greed in his life being surrounded by the ponies. He hasn't even hit his first growth spurt yet, thought Ember. Her thoughts then mused to the other issues that Spike was currently facing. Not up to his knowledge, however. Lack of wings, growth spurts, and from what Twilight has told her about Spike's earlier uprising to now, lack of proper nutrients. Part of growing was eating properly, and the gems and jewels can only go so far. He needed something more. He needed something hardy. He needed... Game! Came a loud roar from Garble. Ember was startled, nearly knocking Spike over. Crying out, he quickly grabbed onto Ember's waist under her wings. With a grunt, she steadied herself and gave a somewhat cautious look to Spike, but quickly focused a glare on Garble as he had dropped down below at high speeds. She watched as he dived towards the ground, going for a deer. The deer heard the dragon and made a dash to get away. What is he doing?" asked Spike, trying to regain some composure on Ember's back. His claws were on her waist, and a small tingling feeling came to her. A bit flushed towards his mistake, and she quickly reassured him. "He is going for a hunt, I suppose, though he shouldn't have yelled it out and said something," she yelled out to the dragon, whom probably never even heard her. Spike watched as Garble began to chase after a deer through the forest. It still unnerved him that dragons ate meat, never once ever trying it. Ember caught his worry and quickly flew down to a clearing. Jumping from her back, he twiddled his claws and began walking away from her. Ember turned to Amethyst, signaling her for watching Garble. A quick nod and she took off after the troubling Drake. Ember, meanwhile, turned to Spike, who seemed worried about Garble, or rather, the hunt. "Does it disturb you that much?" she asked. Spike knew that Ember's and his own viewpoints varied by the way that they were raised. She was raised to be a greedy, strong, almost ruthless to a point now, and must be established that she is fit to be a dragon lord. Ember understood that, as an egg, Spike was given to Twilight for an exam to pass. She magically forced Spike's egg to hatch from him to be born, and it was then under the princesses to entrust her with taking care of the young baby dragon. From then until now, she was raised by Spike to almost pony kin, with their habits, their food, their society, and so on. He endured it never once upon until this time of his journey to the Dragonlands twice had he really explored his dragon heritage. He sighed, giving a shrug in which he shook his head before turning to her. "I'm in my haste to do this for you," he began. "I just forgot how much I have to adapt to becoming a dragon, more so." A tight feeling wrangled in Ember's chest. She approached the young Drake, getting closer to him. "Do you regret your decision?" The quietness that followed was unnerving for both parties, but Spike quickly shook his head. "No, I don't, Ember, but I regret not knowing who I am, where I come from, and how much of a difference between you and I have, and same with every other dragon out there. If I'm gonna be your consort, I can't imagine what the trials I have to do or prove to other dragons are gonna be like, but I just hope that I won't embarrass you or make you regret your decision on me. Regardless of the circumstances on how these trials work or the outcome, my choice of you being my consort will never waver. Your heart is bigger than most dragons out here because of how you were raised by your pony family. You're generally smarter as well." "Not much else?" he asked a bit gloomily. "Not much else is needed from you, Spike. Your bravery had saved an empire. Your courage allowed for you to push the gauntlet of fire. Your heart has allowed you to push the boundary between ponies and dragons alike. Physically wise, you still have yet to reach your potential, and maybe it'll be soon where it kicks in." She placed a clawed hand on him, and she leaned down a bit. "You're still young, just as I told you. You are younger than me, and I'm the youngest of most of the other dragons in the valley. Short of what me and you are, we have done more than any other dragon in history. We are the youngest dragons to go for the scepter and accomplish it. If my father didn't want me to go because of my age, however, he still didn't want his only daughter to enter a challenge that could potentially really kill her. You entered because when you realized that there was potential for the possible destruction of pony society, you selflessly risked your life to do so." Then she gave a gentle kindle kiss across his cheek. That instantly did the trick as it lifted Spike from his mood, and he stared in amazement at her. The wonderful smile that he saw in her just brought a smile to him, and the elegant warm feeling up his spines, just like for the first time. Oh, how he wanted so badly to just lean in and... "Aw, you both are so cute," squeaked the voice to a familiar dragoness. Both snapped out of their stupor and turned their heads towards Amethyst, who had the face of total adoration for the two dragons. Ember stood back, seeming a bit angry at being bothered, though her cheeks are still carrying a hint of red, Well, Spike was full on blushing, but was still pleased that he had received the whole Kindle from Ember. Ember turned to Amethyst. Is Scarble still preoccupied, or is he satisfied by your sudden divergence? She half growled. Out of the bushes, Garble came back with a piece of deer still in his mouth while holding the leg of it, still being chewed on. Spike retched a bit at just seeing the gore. I'm here, he growled, still gnawing on the food in his mouth. Then he swallowed. Don't get your tail in a knot. Ember growled at him and wanted to teach the dragon idiot a lesson, but it was Amethyst whom quickly chimed. I know you want to rip him apart for his sudden appetite here, Lord Ember, but I think we're kinda pressed on time. As much as she hated to admit it, they really were pressed on time, and it pained her not to smack Garble for it. She snorted and turned to Spike, motioning him to return to her. The second we get back, we can deal with your divergent course on suppressed time later. Garble took a final chunk of his meat from the leg, swallowing it whole before tossing the bone away. Whatever. With a snort, he took off with a single flap of his wings. Amethyst soon followed. Ember motioned for Spike to climb on her back, however, she still saw that his gaze was towards the area where Garble had discarded the bone and where he had killed the deer. His face carried fear, but with that fear came a reeking sadness that just echoed in his features, and also his voice. He then cast his gaze to Ember. If I turn like that, would I ever be able to return home? Ember knew that they were worlds apart, but she knew that he was so full of heart, so full of passion and caring that it truly overwhelmed her emotions for him. She knew that his love for all life was grand, and his love for his friends and family was pure, and that he would never turn up darkness unless otherwise manipulated into it. Even then, she believed his heart was too big to be corrupt. Unexpectedly, she reached in and around him for a hug, something neither of them prepared for, but it was welcomed. You will never turn like that. I will never let you. With a sniff, he hugged her tightly. How can you be sure? A deep rumble came from her breast, and he felt even more warm than usual come from them both. It was almost magical, a transfer of energy. Because if you can teach me the value of friendship and even companionship, then I can surely teach you how to be a dragon. A dragon who can remain strong, a dragon who can hold power and more, but still really care for the ones he cares for. She then leaned out and gave him a warm smile. That is also a promise. The warmth was overwhelming once more, but neither of them really complained. Overheard, they heard the dragon circling around. Come on, we have to get going. With a nod, a stronger vigor than before, and a joy he could not express, he climbed onto his consort's back. A few beats of her wings, and both were airborne. The three dragons gained altitude near the mountain peak before heading east, where Spike's destiny and Ember's future lied ahead.